Hi everyone, and welcome to a video where I'm going to show you how to install Ollama and Open-WebUI on Windows and particularly in Linux. So I will do a live demo of the full installation in Linux, but I'm going to show you also how to get it going on Windows. So let's get started. So first let's ask, what is Open-WebUI and what is Ollama and why do I care about them? So right now, the hottest thing out there is large language models, and we have industry-level providers like OpenAI offering us ChatGPT, and Gemini offering us, or Google offering us Gemini, and of course we have X offering us Grok, and a couple of others out there. And so the limitation with these is that they cost money if you want to use them in a serious way. All of them offer you some degree of free tier, but eventually there's a limit. And that's because it's a very computationally intensive task to be able to have the AI or the LLM answer you the questions. There is a lot of math going on behind the scenes. And so they gotta pay the bill. They literally gotta pay the power bill to power the very expensive GPUs that compute the answer to the random questions that you ask ChatGPT. So it makes sense that they charge money. But now the question should be, what if you want to do your own ChatGPT at home or maintain a large language model? And that's where things like Ollama and OpenWebUI come in. So Ollama is a wonderful, wonderful tool that allows you to essentially have those models, not the ones from ChatGPT, but comparable models running in your local machine. So here we have the Ollama website. Where you can see that you can download all the different models. So if you click on the models page, these are all the different models that you can actually download and run on your machine, with a little asterisk, given that you have enough GPU power. So for example, we can see Deepseek, which is the one that I'm going to try to run in a bit, which allows you to install that specific LLM. There's also Ollama 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. This is Meta, so old school Facebook. That's their open source version of the model, and it's very comparable in a lot of ways to some of the OpenAI like ChatGPT 4 models. Obviously, those are companies that are investing millions of dollars in trying to stay cutting edge because they want your business. And of course, this is the open source free version of that. So it's never going to be up there, but it can get very close. And they are doing a pretty good job of maintaining that competitiveness. And it's a community-based thing. So as you can see, there's tons of models, and you can read what each one's specialized for. Certain models are fine-tuned on top of other base models and so on. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of different things. So Ollama is basically, you can think of it as your host that allows you to run large language models. Now, if you're a CS person, or at least you are somewhat handy with a terminal, this is all you need. If you can get Ollama up and running, you can go ahead and run models through the terminal using API, and maybe I'll go ahead and show you some of that in here as well. But ultimately, if you are the average user out there that wants to just be able to use ChatGPT essentially in your computer using some interface that looks kind of like ChatGPT, where you have a chat box and you have a chat history, and you can scroll up and down through the chat, copy and paste, send some documents for ChatGPT to process. If you want to do that, then you need some front end to this Ollama, and that's where OpenWebUI comes in. So OpenWebUI is going to be, as it says there, an extensible self-hosted AI interface that adapts to your workflow. So in other words, it's going to be that front-facing end to what Ollama is going to be running in the background. So I'm going to skip ahead really quickly just to show you what the end result is going to be. And you just saw a second of it because I clicked on the tab. But you can go ahead and set up a login page like this that is running on your computer, or you can host it for other people, such as what I am doing at the place that I work, and I host it. And if you're a student, you have access to this, and I told you about this, specifically RNAV, but you're able to run LLMs through this and interact with them. So I'm going to switch away for a quick second here, just so that I can log in. But I'm going to put in the username and password, and now I'm going to switch back in here, and you can see that I'm logged in. So I can go ahead and see something that looks very close to what the ChatGPT prompts look like. So you have chat and everything. And I'm able in here to select any model that I want. Now I'm running this locally, so I only have one model here for testing purposes. And I can go ahead and ask it a question like, you know, I don't think that's correct grammar, but let's see what it takes. And of course, this is where it's going to depend on your computing power, how fast it's going to get your response. As you can see here, you know, UNLV stands for University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Public Research Institution, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, this is running locally on my machine. I could be offline and this would be running. I can feed it documents as well. Now I'm going to show you the one that I'm running in my school servers. So here we go. So I'm logged in. So as you can see, I got a bunch of models in here. And I can go ahead and run any of them. So like, for example, let's try the Deepseek, 14 billion. Let's see if that runs. So Marco, let's see if it takes Polo in there. Think. Since you mentioned Marco, could you clarify what it means? You could have just said Polo, but yeah. And I think, let's see if this one will work with the upload of the files. Oh, it's getting very deep into whatever this, I sent it. What is in that file? So that file is actually containing some stuff about what it's talking about here, this BMO spreadsheet thing. So, yep, it indeed processed that. It's very confused as to why I sent it this, but you can see that it is able to parse files. So, this is the end game. This is what you want to be able to have, whether you want to host it somewhere with the GPU power or you want to host it locally. So the way you do that is you go ahead and you just download the models that you want. However, a really nice way to do this is through the terminal. So really all you have to download is Ollama itself. So you can just go to downloads and then download for the particular OS that you want. And then you go ahead and download that and then you run it through the installer. And I have a picture of what that installer looks like on the Windows one, because I ran it on that one. So I'll show you very quickly. So here's an example of what it looks like when it's installing. It's just gonna go through a normal installer and it's gonna install everything it needs to run. And that's the easy part. The little bit of a trickier part is installing the OpenWebUI. So if you go to the website for OpenWebUI and you hit Get OpenWebUI, it's gonna take you to GitHub. And if you're not familiar with GitHub, this could be a little bit intimidating. So GitHub is just a repository to host information, usually code. And it's a versioning system. And as you can see, it looks kind of like what we're supposed to run. And by the way, you can interface your OpenWebUI with ChatGPT's APIs as well. But that's not something we're going to talk about in the video. So yeah, if you keep scrolling down, you can get to how to install. And as you can see, you can use pip, and that's actually what I'm going to try when I show you on Linux. But for now, for Windows, what I recommend you use is Docker. So if you download and install Docker, which you can do by going to the Docker website, there's a free version, the personal version. You just have to make an account and let it download, and then you install it. You're going to eventually install something known as Docker Desktop, which will also install the Docker container and everything. And once you have that installed, then all you need to do is just follow the instructions here, depending on where you have Ollama. So if you're running this locally, as in you're running everything in your own local machine, all you need to do is run this command in a Docker terminal, which is docker run blah, 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 this port, and it's going to download and install everything for you when it comes to Docker. Of course, make sure you install Ollama first. Now, if Ollama installs somewhere else, then you got to run this one, then you got to do some connections between the servers, a little more complicated. I'm not going to go over that because I think if you're able to do that, then you can just read through this line of code and set it up. But really what you're doing is you're just telling it the location and the port of where the backend server is so that it can send the command over to that. And then finally, if you have an NVIDIA GPU locally, then run this variant so that it takes advantage of that. So when you do that, you are going to end up, if you open it on Docker Desktop, you're going to run up with this instance here. And the moment that you run this, you can hit play if it's not running, or you can stop and play it if you have issues. then you'll end up with your website that is going to look like this, and it's going to be on a local port, like localhost 3000, and then you're all set. Now, of course, you see that there's only one model here. So let's say you want to get in more models in there. For that, you can just go ahead and open up a terminal like this, and just simply run whichever model you want, and it'll automatically download it. So if I go here to models, let's say I want to download the Deepseek model, then all I need to do is use that run command. So Ollama run Deepseek R1671, although in this case, you want to stick with the smaller token set unless you have a really beefy computer, so that it doesn't take forever to run the command, or we flat out just crash it because you don't have enough VRAM. So if you go ahead and do that, it's going to try to install it. So here I just went ahead and ran it, and as you can see, it's pulling the manifest. It's 4.7 gigabytes, so it's downloading that as I'm speaking now. And what this is going to do is it's going to install it and set it up, and you'll be ready to go in no time. So as you can see, it's very straightforward to install this in Windows. You just download Docker, download Ollama, install Docker, install Ollama, and then once you have Ollama installed, which is the important part, then do the Docker run command from the GitHub, and then it'll set up the OpenWebUI. So make sure you can open OpenWebUI, log in, use a default login for that, create your own user accounts with passwords and everything, and then you're good to go. So let's see if this works. So we're installing Deepseek, and hopefully it's a success. Okay, and there we go. It's up and running. So now I refresh. You can see it here, Deepseek. Similarly, in the terminal, this is a good example. You can see how you can interact with it here. So I can be like, hello, what is your name? Hello, I'm Deepseek, blah, 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 blah. And you can continue interacting with it through here, or you can interact with it through here. Hello, Deepseek. And there you go. Let's ask it the same question. What does UNLV stand for? All right, the user just asked what it stands for, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I got it right. University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So you can see, this was pretty fast, by the way. So I'm running this on the 4090 though, but you know, you have to try out different models and see which one runs best. So as you can see, it's very easy to install a model if you're running locally. You just download and install it with one command, which is just going from the Ollama and pulling them here. Now, there is a way to install other models, like from Hugging Face, etc. It's a little more complicated if you want to go beyond the ones here, but you can go on the Discord there, or you can ask people or search, and you find tons of information on how to set it up as well. So yeah, that's the basic. But now let's actually try to install it from scratch through Python and through Linux. So I'm gonna switch gears over. To a Linux VM that I have here. And I'm going to try to install Ollama. So first I'm going to go to search for Ollama, go to the website, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit download, and I'm going to go to Linux, and I'm going to copy this command, this curl command. Curl is the command to pull something. So I'm going to actually move into a directory where I'm going to install it. So I'm going to create a directory under the home directory and the user directory. Maybe call this one LLM. And then I'm going to go into it, and then I'm going to run the curl command. And curl is not found. No worries. If you get that error, you just need to install curl. You can do that by doing sudo apt install curl, and that's going to install the command into Linux. So again, this is a VM, so it's a brand new fresh VM that I wanted to run with. So okay, let's try it again. All right, so as you can see there, it's downloading the Ollama bundle. And while that's happening, let's go ahead and open the OpenWebUI, or UI, sorry. And for that one, we're going to try to do the Python one. Let's see if Python's installed. or pip, if pip is installed too. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger actually. Make sure you watch this video in HD so that you can see in full glory. Okay, that's actually really big. Okay, so let's just see if pip is installed. But pip is not installed. So, wow, this is so big, it's like, it hurts my eyes. So we're going to also install pip. Ooh, that's a typo there. So I'm installing Python pip by using sudo apt install python 3-pip. So we'll install that. And meanwhile, over here, we still have this working. It's almost done. It's almost finished, and boom. Now, in my specific case, because I'm running it on a virtual machine, it didn't detect the NVIDIA GPU. So I don't recommend you to run this on a VM. I'm just doing that for the sake of the video because I want to be able to record and show you the installation on a Linux machine. What I'm actually going to run this on, if I run it on Linux on my laptop, it's a different story. But yeah, so that's fine. Although if you do have a GPU and you get this error and you're running this on a base Linux, then you gotta probably figure out what's happening. But for now, we're good to go. It's installed. Let's see if it works. Just type in Ollama, not run Ollama. And you can see that it works. So if I say Ollama run, and let's try the same Deepseek model. So yeah, I'm going to run that here. And what that's going to do is it's going to, again, download and install the Deepseek model. Meanwhile, over here, Python just finished installing, or pip. So now we can actually try to, yep, pip works. So we can try running that command from the website. So that is going to be pip install OpenWebUI. So pip install OpenWebUI. Let's just finish letting Deepseek download. And actually, let's test it. Yeah, let's test it. So I can show you don't need OpenWebUI to start working with LLMs. This will be a little bit slower because we're running it on CPU actually. So maybe it won't even run. Yeah, see, so we got an error. Oof. Model requires more system memory. Not to worry, we can try to installing a smaller variant of the Deepseek model. So we're going to do R1 1.5. Let's see if that one will run. It's not going to be as good, but it'll still be okay for the sake of the tutorial. The VM only has, I think, 4 or 5. So that's why. Come on. Yes. Okay, so hello. Are you smart? There we go. So it works. Not our 7 billion, but our 1.5 billion token one. So it's a smaller model, less number of parameters, features, but still good enough for us for the demo. Okay, so now let's install OpenWebUI. So as you saw, I installed and I have running an LLM because it's very, very easy to do this with Ollama. And of course, this is through a terminal, so I could, send requests kind of like an API style to that, and it would be fine. However, if you want to have that interface for convenience, then that's when OpenWebUI will come into play. So let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. Oh yes, that's right. It's asking me to make a virtual environment. We're going to force it. Break system packages. So normally you want to create a virtual environment, like a Python VMB, but since it's just a VM strictly for the purposes of this, YOLO, no worries about that. So yeah, we're just installing it now. If you don't know how to make a virtual environment, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to use VMB. So while that's installing, I'll show you that on a separate window. So you can go ahead and say Python 3-m VMB, and then call it whatever you want. So like my virtual environment. And then it will create it like that. However, in my case, I still need to install the virtual environment tool. Sudo apt install python dash, python 3.12 dash bmd. And if I do this, then I'll be able to create a virtual environment. So as you can see, this is a brand new VM, so it has nothing in it. So run that again. And depending on where I'm at, so in this case, I was in my home directory, and I created my virtual environment there. So now, if I want to enter that environment, I can simply say source my virtual environment, then activate, and now I'm in that virtual environment, so I could actually run this through virtual environments and not break your Python install. However, in my case, I don't really care because that's the sole purpose of this VM, and I'm going to delete it after the end of the tutorial probably, because I don't really need to have it here. So, yep, as we can see, this is still working on installing. So we'll just give it a little bit of a minute here. In the meantime, Control D to exit. There we go. So while we're waiting for that to install, I want to show you how to communicate with the API. So let's say that you are installed on a server, Ollama, and you want to communicate with it. And the way that works is you go ahead and you can simply send a request in the form of the URL and the port that is listening to the API, which you can configure in Ollama. And then in that request, you're going to send in, you're going to call the API generate, and then you're going to send in the parameter, which is the model name. So you can choose between the different models you have in the server. The prompt is going to be your question. And then you're going to send that request, and then the return is going to come in the form of the response. And you want to use the JSON library to capture that response just so it's more organized. And then you can just save it that way. And yeah, it's as straightforward as that to be able to send a request to your server. If you want to delete the environment, by the way, the virtual environment, rf my virtual environment, and that will take care of it. So as you can see, the installation is now done. So what is next? What do I do now that the installation is done? Well, you need to activate it. So you can just say OpenWebUI serve and facepalm. So it should be hosted on that page, but it seems like it was not added to the path file. So let's see what's up. Where did it get installed? One way that you can check where it's installed is you can say pip show OpenWebUI. And you can see there that it's installed. So let's try to install OpenWebUI in a virtual environment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that virtual environment. So I am going to do, what do we want to call it? Let's call it OpenWebUI VM or something. VMV OpenWebUI environment. So now let's do source OpenWebUI again. Activate. And now let's try reinstalling it here. Pip install OpenWebUI. Okay, so I've managed to find where it was installed. So the path file is not linked, but I went ahead and searched through Linux with find name OpenWebUI, and I found that it was installed in the .local bin OpenWebUI folder. So in there, I can go ahead and just do the OpenWebUI serve, and as we can see, it is loading the server. So give it a minute. Fingers crossed it works. Ooh, fancy ASCII. That's a good sign. and stuff is happening. Skynet is probably inserting itself into the world internet right now. No, I'm kidding. It's just running some scary stuff, but maybe it's good. So let's try refreshing our local host. And look at that. We got something good happening here. Nice. Hit that started. So now we're going to enter our full name. So this is when we're creating an admin account. So this is just a test account so I can show you. So I'm going to call this test. My email is test@gmail.com. And my password is going to be password. Create admin account. Yeah, why not save it so I forget it. And then boom, we can see a recognizable page. This looks a little fancier than the one that I had actually. I guess it's maybe a slightly newer variant. But yeah. Hello AI, how are you? Let's see if the AI is connected. And as you can see, it is working. So we successfully installed it. So if you run into that issue that I ran into, just find out where the installer is. You can link the path file, you're good to go. I was also attempting to install it locally, or sorry, not locally, but with a virtual environment. So I just finished that. However, not that command. Here's the good thing about that. So if you do install it with a virtual environment, you don't run into that path file issues. Now, what I probably shouldn't try to do is try to serve both at the same time. That's a recipe for disaster. So either do it globally or do it in the virtual environment. But there you go. Now you know how to install Ollama and OpenWebUI in both your Linux machines and your Windows machines. And if you're running this on Mac, the example that I've shown you for the Linux will be the closest one to what the Mac one's going to be. However, you can also do the Docker one in Mac. And for Ollama, it'll be the same download for all of them. So that one you'll be fine regardless. Please be careful when you set up OpenWebUI. By default, I do not believe it opens the port to the world. You have to manually do that. Do not do that unless you know what you're doing, because then you're hosting the server and other people can connect to you and it's a security risk. However, there's a login interface, but if you don't disable the default login, or at least making your own login first, that's a risk. So just be careful and have fun making your local large language models so that we can democratize the use of AI. Thank you and have a great time. Don't build Skynet yet.